The morning of March 29th, 1461, was unlike any other in England's turbulent history. The northern fields of Yorkshire, blanketed in late winter snow, were about to witness the fiercest battle of the Wars of the Roses. Two rival factions, the Yorkists, led by Edward IV, and the Lancastrians, loyal to the deposed King Henry VIII, stood ready for war. Edward, the newly proclaimed King of England, sought to solidify his claim by striking a decisive blow against the Lancastrians. His opponent, Henry Beaufort, Duke of Somerset, was equally determined to restore the weak but legitimate King Henry VII to his throne. Henry marched his entire force, estimated at between 25,000 and 30,000 troops, across the open plains to confront Edward and the Yorkists in battle near the English village of Towton. For years, England had been torn between supporters of the Red Roses of Lancaster and the White Roses of York. The conflict culminated after the Battle of Wakefield in 1460, where Edward's father, Richard, Duke of York, was killed. At St Albans in 1461, where the Lancastrians briefly regrouped, they regained control. However, the ambitious young Edward turned the tide at the Battle of Mortimer's Cross and entered London victorious, where he was crowned king. His reign, however, was unstable. The Lancastrians, who had retreated north, regrouped under the leadership of Somerset and Queen Margaret of Anjou, and massed their forces in Yorkshire. Edward realised that to truly seize the throne, he would have to crush the Lancastrian army in open battle, and so on Palm Sunday the two sides met near the village of Towton. The battlefield stretched for more than a mile, surrounded by marshy ground. With heavy snow falling, the armies were among the largest at the time. Modern historians believe the total number of between 50,000 and 65,000 is accurate, representing between 1% and 2% of England's population at the time. The Yorkists formed as soon as the Lancastrians had finished deploying. Edward's army was outnumbered, and the Duke of Norfolk's forces had not yet arrived to join them. The York vanguard was commanded by William Neville, Earl of Kent. Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, commanded the York rearguard alongside King Edward. Various sources cite the Duke of Somerset, the Earl of Northumberland, and the Duke of Exeter as commanders of the Lancastrian army, but there is little agreement on the proportion assigned to each. The composition of the two armies was similar, with longbowmen at the front, light and heavy cavalry at the rear and on the flanks, and a mix of armoured men-at-arms constituting the bulk of each force. The infantry spread out in rows, each side containing several hundred heavily armed foot cavalrymen, covered from head to toe in steel armour, a luxury few could afford in the 15th century before the battle. The Lancastrian knights were hidden nearby in a wooded area called Castle Hill Wood, buffeted by fierce winds from Edward's north. Their commander, Lord Finberg, saw an advantage in the wind behind them and ordered the Yorkist archers to fire first. Their arrows flew farther than the enemy, while thousands of deadly arrows rained down on the densely packed Lancaster ranks. Many were terrified, blinded by snow and blood before they could respond. When they tried to respond, the Yorkist archers ran back and forth across the field, making it difficult for the Lancastrian archers to hit their target. Furthermore, the wind was blowing in their direction, forcing their arrows to veer off target and sink uselessly into the frozen ground. York's archers seized the opportunity, pulling empty arrows from the ground and firing them at their enemy, losing a heavy exchange of fire from afar. A furious and desperate Somerset ordered an all-out attack. Edward and the Yorkists rushed head-on to meet them, thousands of men clashing in a pitched battle, swords slicing through steel and flesh alike. The battle turned into a horrific grinding conflict, with neither side able to prevail. The Lancastrians had the numerical advantage, aided by reinforcements led by the Earl of Northumberland. Their ranks pressed hard on the Yorkists, forcing them to retreat step by step toward the river for 3 hours. The men fought in the bitter cold, their boots slipping on the blood, stained by the snow. Corpses were piled so high that men fought over them, bodies stabbed and hacked in the desperate squeeze. The air was filled with the screams of the dying. As the battle raged, the Lancastrian cavalry, hidden in the woods of Castle Hill, charged and charged the Yorkist left flank. The Yorkist left flank fell into disarray, and many men began to flee. Edward himself was forced to lead his left flank to save the day by engaging in the fighting and encouraging his followers. His example inspired many to persevere. Edward's forces were nearly destroyed when a glimmer of hope appeared on the horizon for the Yorkists. John Mowbray, Duke of Norfolk, arrived with fresh Yorkist troops. The Duke, with his heavy cavalry, followed by his infantry, quickly charged into the bloody battle. The Norfolk heavy cavalry attacked the Lancastrian left flank, inflicting severe physical and psychological damage. The Lancastrians continued to fight, but the Yorkists were outnumbered. The exhausted Red Rose soldiers could no longer hold their lines. A massacre erupted. Seeing their lines breaking, the Lancastrians turned and fled, while small groups of men began to run for their lives. Many abandoned their weapons and armour in the hope of escaping their pursuers. But the Yorkists were merciless. The retreat quickly turned into a massacre. Many desperate Lancastrians rushed towards the River Beck. A glacier rushed behind their ranks, its banks slippery with blood and mud. There was no escape, and hundreds fell into the icy waters, their armour leaking. Others fell dead as York's knights pursued them mercilessly, according to historians. No prisoners were taken. Edward ordered a policy of total destruction. The battle was so brutal that some reports claim 28,000 men died, making it the bloodiest battle in English history. Yet, despite the many bloody battles, they did not surrender and continued their campaigns in the following years, forgetting the bloody battles.